what's happening, gamers? I'm Kwing, and welcome to the Let's Play channel. Also, happy St. Patrick's Day! Today we're talking about John Stewart, the Green Lantern. I know technically Kyle is Irish, well, his mom is, but I really like John Stewart because he's cool. Okay, so the character will cost you whatever, and he has the same abilities as Hal Jordan, so shield, flight, etc., etc. He's a Green Lantern, what more do you want? A little bit on his origin, John was created to be a sidekick character in 1971 by one of my favorite DC teams of all time, that of Neil Adams and Dennis O'Neil. Though later he would actually become a substitute for Hal Jordan and other Green Lanterns who couldn't do their duties on Sector 2814. Personally, I really can't stand his early comic personality or the stories he was in, so I'm not really getting into his 70s stuff at all. He was written more like a Black Panther than heroic space cop, early on. Although by the 1980s, he mellowed out and worked with the Justice League a lot during Jordan's retirement, which for some reason in the 80s, Hal Jordan retired, I forget the reason, probably Carol. I'm pretty sure this was actually the version that the late Dwayne McDuffie turned into our favorite Green Lantern for the Cartoon Network show Justice League and Justice League Unlimited. But anyway, back to the 1980s. John Stewart fell in love with an alien named Kat, at least I think that was her name. They had many adventures together and eventually they got married. Everything was happy until she died, and John lost his powers and came back to Earth and then disappeared in space, kind of like what the other guy did. What's his name? Gardner, that's it, Guy, yeah. So John is not really around so much during Kyle Rayner's intro as the 90s extreme Green Lantern. So in 1996, John Stewart went through an identity crisis more or less and kind of looked like the Doctor Strange from Marvel Comics, equipped with like this weird red cape thing. His name was also the Master Builder, and no, he was not the special one or a Lego. But he did have these really strange powers that enabled him to kind of use his ring stuff again. And he brought his wife back to life for a little bit too, and everything was happy until Hal Jordan went all evil-like, destroying the central power battery on Oa and wiping out most of the core and stealing their rings, like an obsessed Smeagol or Gollum. Also, during some weird space battle in, space, John Stewart ends up in a wheelchair and becomes paralyzed, so he pulls an Oracle for a little bit. However, this is not a permanent thing because Hal Jordan sacrifices himself to stop a Sun Eater from destroying the universe. And of course, John gets the ability to walk again, and a power ring from Kyle Rayner, who's more or less the Green Lantern for Earth now, for a while. That is until the 2000s roll around. And then John, once again, is the main Green Lantern that works with the Justice League, like in the 1980s. And that's all I really care to chat about for the comics, since, of course, Rebirth is a Hal Jordan story about redemption and coming back, and the Green Lantern Several War things are mostly about Kyle Rayner becoming a White Lantern, and Guy Gardner becoming a Red Lantern and doing Guy stuff. I really just want to move the focus to Dwayne McDuffie's work with John Stewart for the cartoon show Justice League and Justice League Unlimited, because that's where the good stuff is. So in case you didn't know this, and you've been living under a rock or whatever, Justice League was an animated series that was a modern approach for the Super Friends for Cartoon Network, and it was amazing. Even if it kinda lacked the same impact that Batman the Animated Series had, this was mostly due to the passing of older crew members and the composer Shirley Walker. Anyway, Dwayne McDuffie's John Stewart was awesome. He was a tough-as-nails Marine who actually falls in love with an alien, Aw-Qward, and he mentors the youngest Justice Leaguer, Wally West, and later Supergirl. Now, he was actually voiced by Phil LaMarr, the voice of Static Shock and Samurai Jack, who is a legendary voice actor, by the way, and brings John Stewart to life in Justice League. In terms of just regular friendships, John gets along pretty well with J'onn J'onzz, so Martian Manhunter, and Batman. So they kind of combine Hal Jordan and Barry Allen's personalities into John Stewart a little bit with the connection with Bruce Wayne. They're kind of like best friends, and they have a deep respect for one another in the series, though their methods clash sometimes. They also are the only two people that know the future of the entire DC animated universe, because they met Terry McGinnis, the future Batman of Gotham, and of course learned that GL has a son named Warhawk with Shira Hall in the future. And everybody's just kind of like, whew, Whoa. Just so you know too, John was actually one of the founding 7 of the Justice League and is essentially the Hal Jordan of the Timverse. And you actually do see Hal Jordan for like a millisecond in the future with Stewart and Batman. He like shifts into their plane of reality and, you know, just acts like, okay, I know what's going on, and then Stewart's back. So like his comic book origins in Justice League, Stewart is from Detroit, and he joined the Marines, became a Green Lantern, but in the series, other than the Manhunter episode, where supposedly John blew up a planet, got arrested, and is taking responsibility for what he did because he's a very moral conscious character, you don't really learn much about his backstory at all. In fact, most of the episodes where he and Hawkgirl are together or flirting, they're off on alien worlds being space cops together. So no backstory. One interesting characteristic about John Stewart that I remember though is his eyes would glow green, and he didn't wear a mask at all. The reason why his eyes would glow is due to the exposure from using the power ring for so many years. Stewart is also the leader of the Green Lanterns, which is really cool. It's also shown that he outranks Kyle Rayner, who's actually a member of the Green Lantern Honor Guard on Oa. And this happens when Amazo supposedly destroyed Oa, and then Stewart like joins up with Kyle, and they're gonna blast Amazo and destroy half of the Earth because half an Earth is better than no Earth. Of course, they don't end up doing that. Lex Luthor saves the day, which everybody's kind of like, what? But yeah. Another interesting bit about John Stewart is he doesn't have a weakness to yellow power rings or yellow energy. Though, I don't know if this is a goof or whatever, but in Justice League Unlimited, the Great Brain Robbery episode, where Wally, or rather Lex Flash, is able to throw yellow jello in John's face and knock him and Red Tornado over. It's a hilarious scene, and everybody's just kind of like, what's up with the yellow thing that was able to defeat Green Lantern? So, it might be a continuity error, but it's still funny. After the events of Star-Crossed, where Hawkgirl leaves the team, John uses his Marine training to help act as a drill sergeant for the new recruits coming into the Justice League Super Army, which has Amanda Waller and the rest of the world kind of like, because, you know, they have this, like, orbital death ray above the Earth, and now they have this super army, so Cadmus is gonna need to step it up. He also mentors Supergirl in place of Wally, and he meets a new girlfriend, Vixen. When Hawkgirl returns later, it sets up a tension on the Watchtower, which you can just feel. You know, you can cut it with a knife, it's so thick. My wife and I always wanted to see Stewart and Hawkgirl get back together, but it doesn't really happen. Except they kind of hint at it with that weird Hawkman episode, but yeah. GL, for the most part in the series later on, says, I'm very happy with Vixen. And Batman's just kind of like, and we kind of are right there with Batman, like, yeah, we are also big Stewart and Shira shippers. As for other media, well, John Stewart appears in Justice League Heroes and works with Wally. Again, that game, if you watched our Let's Play, it was supposed to be about the original Justice League cartoon show, then it somehow morphed into the Justice League comics from the time, hence why all the actors were replaced and animation just looked weird. So it makes sense that that dynamic was still there, but it's still kind of like, okay. Because in the comics, they're not really close. He did appear in DC Universe, and I forget who he's voiced by, but he's in that game. He's on Oa. He's a Skin in Injustice, and he's voiced again by Phil Lamar. And he appears in some Game Boy Advance games featuring the Justice League Timverse. Oh, and of course, he's in this game. Before I forget too, he is also in Young Justice, though mostly as a cameo role. His voice actor, I believe, is Kevin Michael Richardson, the guy who played the Joker in the Batman 2004 series. The one with the dreadlocks? Yeah. And before we wrap up, just getting back to DC Comics a little bit, after the battle for the cowl where Dick Grayson became the Batman, John Stewart's character received a little bit better writing, though not much. Then, of course, in the New 52, when that happened in 2011, he became the main character for the Green Lantern Corps, like in the Green Lantern Corps books. Now, according to IGN, John Stewart is listed as the 55th greatest comic book hero of all time, but personally, I think he should be at least number 30, especially due to how amazing he was in the Justice League cartoon series on Cartoon Network. If you haven't seen that, the series is on Amazon. You can buy the DVDs. It's an amazing show. I strongly suggest you watch it because it's just like, whoa. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we're done. If you have a character you want to see, let me know in the comments below and I'll do my best to make it so. Wow, Star Trek. Don't forget to leave a like for GL, and I'll see you on the next LEGO Batman 3 lore video. Happy St. Patrick's Day, go wear green or you'll get blasted by Jon Stewart. Bye-byes.